Ja, meine Damen und Herren, jetzt nach dieser offiziellen Eröffnung von der Frau Stadträtin kommen wir zum traditionellen Festvortrag am Freitag am Vormittag. Yvonne Farrell hat vor einigen Jahren schon einen Vortrag beim Turn-On-Festival gehalten, einen sehr beeindruckenden Vortrag, und ich freue mich, dass ich sie heuer für den Festvortrag gewinnen konnte. Sie führt mit ihrer Partnerin Shelley McNamara ein Architekturbüro in Dublin, wie Sie sicherlich wissen, Clifton Architects. 1978 wurde es gegründet und beide waren vor 2 Jahren als Kuratorinnen oder Direktorinnen der 16. Architekturbiennale von Venedig beauftragt. Sie haben auch Lehraufträge und Professuren rund um den Globus, sozusagen von Dublin über Harvard bis Yale und schließlich bis nach Mendrisio in der Schweiz. Ein sehr beeindruckendes Werk, und ich darf aus dem Vortrag von Yvonne Farrell im Jahr 2016 hier bei Turn On kurz zitieren. Sie sagte beinahe nebenbei zentrale Sätze, die, glaube ich, in der jüngsten Vergangenheit noch wichtiger geworden sind. This profession is so important. As architects, we make the physical world, and therefore it is our responsibility to care for the planet. Yvonne Farrell ist Architektin und zu den beeindruckenden Bauten des Büros zählen unter anderem die Universitätsbauten in Mailand und in Lima in Peru, zuletzt dann in Toulouse in Frankreich. Ein sehr eigenständiges Werk, bei dem der Raum, der öffentliche Raum, eine ganz zentrale Rolle spielt, bei dem Courtyards, also Höfe, auch in unterschiedlicher Ausformung formuliert sind und Innen- und Außenraum gehen fließend ineinander über. Das Gebäude wird zur Landschaft und wie immer kommt es natürlich dann auf die Detailausbildung an. Die Architektinnen bezeichnen sich selbst als Cultural Detectives, ein sehr schöner Ausdruck meines Erachtens nach, ein sehr sprechender Ausdruck. Und vor diesem Hintergrund entsteht dann eine ausdrucksstarke Ästhetik am jeweiligen Ort und aus dem Ort heraus entwickelt. Der Vortragstitel dieses Festvortrages lautet The Physics of Culture, und auch hier stecken schon gegensätzliche Begriffe im Titel. Es geht um Facts und Values bei diesem Vortrag, um Fakten, Daten, Tatsachen auf der einen Seite und Werte auf der anderen Seite. Ich darf die bisherigen Redner der Festvorträge in Erinnerung rufen. Adolf Krischanitz hat im Jahr 2012 begonnen, Stefano Boeri, Max Rieder, Christian Borret und Leo van Breuk in den letzten beiden Jahren aus Belgien, aus Brüssel, Hermann Tschech natürlich nicht zu vergessen. Zuletzt waren es 2 sehr politische Vorträge. Heute wird wieder eine gewisse Wendung gemacht. Clifton Architects sprechen über ihr Werk, Yvonne Farrell spricht jetzt dann über ihr Werk, aber es geht auch um wichtige philosophische Aspekte der Arbeit. Die beiden Architektinnen verbinden in ihrer Arbeit Theorie und Praxis, Reflexion auf der einen Seite mit dem Entwurf auf der anderen Seite. Es geht um Analyse und Intuition, um Rationalität und Sensibilität, und das alles wird meines Erachtens nach auf sehr fließende Weise verbunden, sodass die gegensätzlichen Aspekte am Ende zu einer Einheit verschmelzen und die Grenzen nicht mehr wahrnehmbar sind. Intertwining, das ist ein Begriff, der von Yvonne Farrell auch verwendet wird, ein sehr schöner, fast poetischer Begriff. Ja, zuletzt noch einmal meine herzliche Gratulation zum Pritzker-Preis 2020 natürlich. Und jetzt bitte ich die Techniker, die schon sehr fleißig an der Arbeit waren. Es ist nämlich so, dass Yvonne Farrell kurzfristig leider absagen musste. Nicht absagen, Gott sei Dank, nicht absagen, sondern ihr persönliches Kommen absagen musste. Sie ist jetzt zugeschaltet. Meine Techniker auf der Bühne oben, die haben wirklich professionelle Arbeit auch heuer wieder geleistet. Und ich begrüße jetzt Yvonne. Hi Yvonne, I'm glad to see you. And I made a short introduction, and I already said that you are sorry that you couldn't come to Vienna personally, but that you will give a keynote lecture with a very impressive PowerPoint presentation. And yeah, I would invite you to start with your keynote lecture right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It is a great pleasure to participate in this conference, and I'd like to thank all involved, especially Margaret Ulama, for inviting Grafton to speak. I'm sorry that I cannot be there in person, but the wonders of technologies means that I am with you this morning in Vienna. I'm with you from Dublin. I use the title, The Physics of Culture, which describes the impact on place, because I want to talk with you this morning about the value of space, the specific climate where you are on this beautiful planet impacts, that we as architects, as a profession, are a type of scientist of space, that we use a mix of materials, function, social overlap, expression, symbolism, interaction, and dreams. My first slide shows 6 summaries of the thoughts that I will share with you this morning. Diagrams, sketches, models of some of our work, and I will discuss with you over the next 25 minutes or so ways of thinking, describing our values, how we translate need into space, how we transform people's wishes into functioning organizations. We do believe that architects are translators, that we translate need into space. We find and hopefully express meaning. We say that architecture is a silent language that speaks. We listen, we imagine, we build. We take raw materials and carefully position them to hold human lives. We capture light. We capture the warmth of the sun. We shield you from the cold, and we hopefully enrich your lives. We talk about plan and section because we believe that the plan is the logical positioning of functions and that the section is the emotional component, because here is the invention and the capturing of light. I start with the bowl, a functioning object held by the ceramic that provides the enclosure. It is the space that holds the liquid, and it reminds us of architecture and what the Spanish architect Alejandro de la Sota says, that, and I quote, that architects should make as much nothing as possible, end of quote. And for us, it's in the nothing that we humans stand, and it is by chosen materials that space is enclosed. This bowl, I'd like to talk for a minute about the Japanese art of kintsugi, which is the art of repairing broken pottery. It's by mending the areas of breakage with a lacquer mixed with powdered gold. As a philosophy, it treats breakage and repair as part of the history of the object, rather than something to disguise or hide or pretend that it didn't happen. I use this metaphor with you this morning. It's really of how architecture adds to the layer of building on this earth. How at a time of climate change, a time to care deeply about our world, that we repair the broken, that we reuse where possible, that we become hyper-conscious of how we use materials, that everything matters. On the left-hand side is a photograph of the Doge's Palace in Venice. And for me, it was an extraordinary photograph. I took this photograph in Venice, and I couldn't understand the light. It was the first time I had ever seen this two lights simultaneously. And one is on the terrazzo floor, one is the skylight, and the other is the light from the sun. And for us, this was really describing light from the sun as a type of gold dust, a free resource. And as a profession, we take materials and we modify them. We transform raw materials into surface that contains space, into space that holds us. On the right-hand side is a piece of architecture that we truly love. It is the seat outside the house of Canlis on the island of Majorca by Jorn Utzon. And the reason I have this on the screen with you this morning is that Jorn Utzon was a master. He took the cold materials of concrete and ceramic tile, and by virtue of his skill, he transforms them into silk or satin. When you sit on that seat, you know that the human body has been thought of by a master architect. The seat is slightly sloped to the back. The tile for your lower back and for your head are really placed in that position. So here you have an architect that at one scale is able to make the Sydney Opera House, which represents, if you like, a whole nation. And at the other end of the spectrum, Jorn Utzon cares for you as an individual, making the seat to hold your body. I want to start in terms of our projects about the power of the drawing. Here is our sketch of a project that we built in Milan. It was the biggest project at the time that we had ever built, 65,000 square meters, offices for 1,000 professors. And this sketch is the DNA, the thought that holds this complex project together. So you get a skyscape up here with the 1,000 offices held apart to allow the liquid light, the gold light from the sun to penetrate deep in the section, so these spaces between, and the shared huge volumes which were to be built into the ground. We asked the question that we would corrupt the ground and bring natural daylight down even into the lower spaces, and then between to make this the Lesota's nothing, that the space between would become the shared space. So if you look at the section here, this is a human being on the level of the city. This person, there's an 8-meter high glazed screen which allows a view down into this space, and overhanging 22 meters of a cantilever is the Aula Magna, which has 400 people and 600 people. So this is a room for 1,000 people. But in that, the value of natural daylight for the human, for the pleasure of human in these courtyards, these are like periscopes bringing light down, in this courtyard bringing light down, in this courtyard bringing light down. And on this drawing, you see the liquid possibilities of daylight into this interior space. So you get the 3 periscopes of light bringing light onto the stage and into this room. In terms of the social relationship then, when this 22-meter cantilever hovering above, underneath and 5 meters below the city level, lined with Bianca Laza, which is a beautiful white marble, that you get a socializing space. So 2 things happen. One, the university has a space for its own use, but also the citizens of the city are able to participate in terms of this enormous window. So the city is connected to the university, and the university is connected to the city. Another project that we did in Lima, Peru, was a wonderful experience for us. Lima is a desert city. It's on the Pacific Ocean. It has this 40-meter high cliffs which separate the city from the Pacific Ocean. And because it's 12 degrees from the equator, it should be a really, really hot city. But because of the von Humboldt current, which comes up from Antarctica, it cools the city and keeps it. This is the fog that is generated, and fog is amazing because in this position on the Earth, the fog refracts the light and actually affects the back of your eyes. It's an amazing experience to be in the fog of Lima. But for us then, doing this, there was a competition, international competition. So as if you like, under the title this morning of Physics of Culture, we looked at this place for its unique characteristics. And in our research, coming across and knowing about, in a very slight way, about von Humboldt, we dug deeper into this incredible human being. And we absolutely love, excuse me, sorry, love this, excuse this, apologies. Bear with me, somebody will pick this up. Sorry about this. Apologies for that. Technology has its downside. What it does allow us to look at this amazing image by von Humboldt, which is because for us, it is an extraordinary amalgam of beauty in terms of the drawing and also in terms of data. And it's the German word, which you will understand more clearly than me, the Naturgemälde is what this drawing is called. And what we loved about discovering deeper about von Humboldt was that he was synthesizing all the information of position on the Earth, on depth, on section, on the integration of atmospheric pressure and planting. And so for us, what is amazing about this drawing is that rather than the science being separate, it was really looking at nature in a very complex way and finding a simple way of presenting that complex knowledge to the general public. I mean, he's the man that really, for us, was a wonderful find in terms of research. This is our section for the competition in Lima. We asked the question, if you're building a building in a city that has a temperature that's constantly in the 20s, why could we not ask the question, can it be different to other places? That we're not building in Paris, we're not building in Milan, we're building in Lima, Peru. And this section describes us trying to understand the schedule of accommodation, the brief. So you have large laboratories, smaller laboratories, research classrooms and library. And what we said, and in our discussions for the competition, could we make a choice between rooms that had to be interior and rooms that could be on the exterior and enjoy this, if you like, unbelievably unique temperature and landscape and culture. So here are the circulation routes. So what we said was all the circulation would be outside. That's the busy road on this side and the left side of the image would be protected by sloping wall. That all of the bigger rooms would provide roofs, which would be gardens for the students, like Machu Picchu. And we were very aware that we were strangers coming to a different land in a seismic area. So this leaning back was a structural response to the very seismic nature of this city. And that we would make, because the sun is 12 degrees from the equator, the sun is very harsh. So we were making this like a peak cap that you would protect the students within what we called a vertical campus. We asked the question, could a university be a man-made cliff? We were inventing stories for this new university to find expression for the university, but also an educational idea. So if you were a student from the Andes walking on these circulation systems, that you could see into these large laboratories, into the other laboratories, and that maybe if you're studying one subject, you might become intrigued by other issues that would be dealt with in the education system. On the right-hand side is a paper model. When we were studying the busy motorway here, the residential area in this direction, and as we cascaded the building down and using the roofs as student gardens, like Machu Picchu. And what we found amazing was that we could use the stepping section like Russian dolls. You had larger ones, smaller ones, as we went up to this sun protection. And here is the building in its context, with the sun protection here, with the, if you like, the evacuation staircases positioned every 20 meters, and the routes through where students are both aware that they are close to the foothills of the Andes and looking out to the Pacific, but also that they had this vertical campus, which was their new world. And architecturally, what we did was that the site was like a boomerang, a long, thin, 360-meter long site. And every 20 meters, we placed these safety staircases, but also places where students would meet each other. And like an abacus, that we placed the various rooms and modified each position at these junctions because of the shape. What is really interesting is that because of the shape, the feeling of walking through this space is like going through a medieval city, because it's not a line, it's shifting in terms of structure. And every 20 meters, we had these diaphragm walls which picked up the various functions. You can see them as you go through. And we also had intertwined gardens. So we brought nature into this carved mountain, and we had the major circulation, but also we had minor circulation. It's a bit like an Escherich drawing that you move through both in this direction and in this direction. And as you're moving, you see into these laboratories. So it was an educational, this is a new university, and we were finding expression for UTEC on the busy motorways of the city. Another project which we have just finished outside Paris in a place called Saclay, which is it's a strategy by the French government to move many universities out to this area on a plateau called Saclay. And for us, we deal with many situations which are embedded in existing city structures. And one of the difficulties or the challenges for us as architects, that when you're building on new ground, on open ground, is to find something that anchors our thinking to place. So on the left-hand side is a little piece of stone. When we went to this site, it was a field, about an hour, about half an hour's taxi journey from Paris, and we were trying to find something to anchor our thoughts in this place that would take some time to become a whole educational precinct. So this is a beautiful stone from that site. And on the right-hand side is a piece of work by the Spanish sculptor Chillida. And what we love about this is that Chillida has this incredible ability to make pieces from which it seems that light emanates. It seems that light is in the interior and moves from the inside out of his work. So in this site, this building which we have just finished, Institut Mines Telecom, it's Paris-Saclay. You can see Paris in the distance, and this is the plateau where it's being changed into a huge educational precinct. And for us, when we began to work here, we were looking at these incredible references, this incredible complex of buildings, say in Cordoba. The wonderful thing about an architect, or being an architect and in our profession, that there are so many wonderful samples of proven spaces around the world. So this sheet of our drawings and references are really important to share with you today. We were setting up a building. This is 200 meters by 100 meters. It would have about 3,500 people. So we were looking at this is the grid towns in France, looking at these amazing organizations with ecclesiastical and civic spaces. We were looking at places in Palais Royal. Sorry about this. I'll just leave this part. Something I hadn't anticipated. So excuse me. Pardon me for that. Palais Royal, this incredible complex of buildings in Paris, this incredibly sustainable building in its Ospedale Maggiore from the 1400s in Milan. This is Trinity College. I have walked through this this morning as I came to participate with you, going through the main gate of Trinity. And this is Saclay, the project that we did. And the reason I'm sharing these with you this morning is that as architects, we're trying to find the measure to make a judgment about how to make a new organization. With the Saclay project, we were building, as I said, out in an area which was completely new. So also part of this project was that they wanted 100 real trees as part of the organization, and they wanted to keep a 1.36 grid. So what we've done is a series of vertical contours that link with the rest of the new campus and formed a series of courtyards. So an entrance courtyard, 3 others, and a main courtyard with the deep trees. So the section, this is our, like Chalida up here with the light from within, the main entrance is facing north, and we wanted light to appear through. So here we have positioned all the shared uses on the lower level: arrival, cafe, student positions, exhibition spaces. And here we have real ground for the real trees, and we have the main space, which is here. The main student space arriving up a ramp for the library to be in this position and to enjoy the relationship to nature. We've just finished another project in Kingston, just south of central London City. In this plan here, you see this is the River Thames, which is here, Great River. Nearby is Hampton Court, a beautiful brick complex, and this is the site for the new townhouse. On the right-hand side, these were 1970s buildings of very poor quality with parking outside. We positioned this building here with taking away the parking, making a public space, a new linear park to connect this new university facility with the very busy road and also the local community, to make a space which kept existing trees, to make a new park, but also to bring people in to a new auditorium. I'll quickly describe this in its location, but the main thing, I suppose, for us is that even though we had made plans and sections, that in reality, that the experience of architecture can only be in itself. It's like reading music, that you have to be in a space. You have to move through this to really to experience the interlocking of light and the interlocking of space. What we feel is very successful in this new building is that we have made an auditorium in here that's shared by everyone. But the incredible thing about this brief was that it was for a library and for urban dance. Urban dance is one of the noisiest disciplines in terms of dance, and library, as you can imagine, is the other extreme. So this university wanted to place these two extremes in terms of noise and light together. And architecturally, we have found that crazy as it might have sounded, by insulating the sound of the dance, by making a complex section, by allowing light in and making it, if you like, a three-dimensional experience, it is working extremely well. So this is the auditorium or the courtyard. You have the library being able to view into it, the library being able to participate in the sense of seeing dancers prepare to come into this space. So this is the socializing heart of this building. Quickly, I'm aware of time, so I'll quickly, this is a project we're building in London for the London School of Economics in section sport, connecting to city, moving up through the building with the various departments onto the rooftop to view out over the city. And for us, structure is really an important component of architecture. So we have made these enormous trees of structure. We are referring to the beautiful Undercroft in Lincoln's Inn's Fields, is this beautiful chapel which is held above this beautiful structure which is open. And in terms of free space, going back to the Venice Biennale, the free space is really this space that is used by the general public. And for us, in this new building, which is 55 meters onto Lincoln's Inn's Fields, this is really the area down below where all the students of the campus of LSE will meet. So this is the space under construction now, LSE in the distance, this sloping floor connecting all of the campus of LSE, and this enormous structure of trees. This is an 8-meter span, so that the socializing space means that you move up this great staircase to the teaching spaces above. I'll finish with this last project, which is also just finished by us in this beautiful city of Toulouse. This is the River Garonne, the Canal de Midi coming into the city. The competition was for a breach in a medieval wall. This is 5 meters high, a new university in the breach of this brick wall, a Romanesque church, absolutely beautiful. What we've made is a sundial. So these are the study offices for the researchers, but also their gathering spaces for lectures. And in terms of the physics of culture, what we wanted to achieve was that when you're in this building, that we would frame the wonderful views of this fantastic city. Toulouse is a brick city, and instead of using plaquettes, which are tiles, we found within an hour from Toulouse, people making beautiful bricks in the same way as the Romans were making them. So here is our 5-meter high brick wall, our building as a breach, this beautiful city of cathedrals and walls. Our section, which is about a vertical section here, we have what is called a sky cloister. You move in, you move up through this open space, and the plan becomes like a sunflower. Each of the offices are responding to their orientation and protection from the sun. And when you're inside, your view of the city means that you are more aware that you are living in Toulouse, that you are not in any other city in the world, but that the building heightens your awareness of this beautiful city. So this is the canal, the breach in the wall, what we call our sky cloister. And here you're entering into this building, and from all of these positions, you are aware of the city. I'd just like to finally, the last slide to describe to you in the Biennale, as was mentioned earlier on, we chose the title Free Space. And that was really to deal with space as opposed to object. But we also stated that the earth is client. And two of the things which people can look at their own enjoyment on YouTube is a little film called El Capo and another film called Chasing Ice. And the reason for us putting those into the Biennale is that on the left-hand side, we would encourage every architect to realize that when we specify elements and surfaces, that we are carving out precious resources from the earth, and that it should not be done lightly. And on the right-hand side is a film describing the melting of glaciers in Greenland. So we, as a profession, in terms of this morning's discussion or presentation to you, we are very aware that us as a profession play a role in what is chosen as materials, how we make buildings in terms of sustainability. So I'd like to end this morning with saying that the earth is truly our client. Our profession is a wonderful one. We make the world in which people live. It is a great honor to be an architect, and it is a pleasure for me to have participated with you this morning in Vienna. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Yvonne. I just would like to ask you two questions. One referring to a detail you mentioned at the beginning of your lecture. You said, or you spoke about the emotional aspects of section. So that's a little bit astonishing. On the other hand, it was a little bit explained by when you spoke about the section of the project in Lima, but I think it would be interesting if you could say a little bit more about those emotional aspects of the section, how you understand that.
Okay, thank you for your question. When we talk about a plan, when you are dealing with clients, when you are dealing with city, when you are dealing with the functional list of something, you can position various functions close together or apart depending on organization. But then architecture is really how you control your relationship with the outside. You can make it dark, you can make it bright, but you're actually enclosing space. And I know it's like a common reference, but what is incredible is the Pantheon, which is an ancient building, and all it has is a hole in the roof. And yet it is extraordinary because it is a perfect circle in plan and in section. It is a beautiful stone coffered Roman building, and its relationship to light. It's like a sundial. And when you ask the question about the emotional aspects of section, that project in Kingston or the project in Toulouse, one of the things that we're very happy about is that there's a sense when you spend time in the building that you sense the passage of the day, that the building has enough daylight to allow you to know that it's morning, or that you know that it's the middle of the day, or that it is sunset. And there is an emotional relationship between human beings and nature. And we would argue that the emotional aspects of building are something that we need to talk about in depth. If you are in an inner room all day in a black box, you have no connection to the natural rhythms of the day. And going back to one of my first images of the big Aula Magna in Bocconi in Milan, that by putting in the 3 periscopes, as I called it, that you bring in the liquid joy of sunlight, and that looking at that Japanese bowl, it's one of the most important things that we are given from nature is light, and light is free. And as Shelley tells a lovely story of a colleague of hers who's a poet, who casually said to her one day, "Oh yes, your material is light." And I think that from a poet is very interesting because they use words to craft the essence of humanity. I think that architects, that's our métier, that's our liquid space-making element. And going back to somebody we really admire, like Johan Utzon, that when you go in the door of that house with the beautiful seat, and you go into that space, he has held light. It's like orchestrating the ability to control light, or to bring light in like a tsunami, or shutter it. There are beautiful shutters by the Mexican architect Luis Barragan. And what Barragan does with shutters, he allows you as a human being to bring in the light, close it off. And in all those beautiful houses you have in Vienna, the shutter is one of the most fantastic machines for each of us, whether you're an architect or not, to play with light. It's like an instrument. So going to answer your question, the emotional aspect of the section is also volume. It is surface and acoustics. To be in a space that makes you feel better. Is it tall? Is it wide? Does it embrace you? There's a lovely story that happened to Shelley and I when we opened Bocconi. The photographer said to us, "Would you like to see meet the woman who allowed me to take photographs every month of the building?" And we said, "Yes, we would like to meet her." We went to her apartment close by the building, overlooking the building, and we said to her, "Would she like to see the building?" She was a mature and elderly person. She said no. So we stayed there for a while, and as we were leaving, her daughter said, "Yes, she'll come with you." And as she came with us down into the building, into the level of the street, 5 meters below then, and then 9 meters below, she turned to me and she said in Italian, "The structure is immense, but it embraces you." And for me, that was an emotional description by a person, not an architect, understanding the power of structure and its ability to be dissolved by light.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I think that was a very good explanation of the work at the end. Light, structure, space, I think main aspects of your work. And thank you again for your wonderful keynote lecture. All the best to Dublin and to you and Shelley, and of course once more congratulations that you received the Pritzker Prize 2020. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.